AITA for refusing my brother's request to babysit his kids when he had to go on a business trip because the last time his kids trashed my house. My brother was surprised by my refusal. My brother Jason called me up last week, and before I even picked up, I had a bad feeling. See, Jason only ever calls me when he needs something. Never just to chat, never to check in. And sure enough, the first thing out of his mouth was, "Hey, can you watch the kids for a few days? I've got a business trip coming up." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took a deep breath and let the memories of last time flood in. The last time I watched his kids, my house looked like a hurricane had ripped through it. His 3 little tornadoes, ages 4, 6, and 8, had somehow managed to do more damage in one weekend than I thought humanly possible. They clogged my toilet with Legos, drew on my walls with markers I swore I had hidden, and spilled an entire gallon of chocolate milk on my carpet. My couch still smelled vaguely like syrup, and I never did find the missing TV remote. But the worst part? Jason never even said thank you. He just picked them up, barely noticed the disaster zone he was walking into, and said, "Kids will be kids," before driving off like he didn't just leave me with a house that looked like a daycare that had been raided by raccoons. So this time, I wasn't about to get steamrolled. "I don't think that's gonna work for me," I finally said. Silence. Then, "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm not willing to deep clean my house for a month again, after 3 days with your kids, Jason. That's what I mean. Last time was kind of a lot. I don't think I'm up for that again," I said, trying to keep it civil. Jason sighed, the kind of exaggerated, put-upon sigh that made it clear he thought I was the problem here. "Come on, they're just kids. It's only for a few days. I don't have anyone else to ask." Which was a lie. He had plenty of people he could ask. His in-laws, our mom, even his wife's best friend, who actually liked watching them. He just didn't want to go down that list, because I was the easiest option. I stood my ground. "I'm sorry, but I just can't do it this time." Another pause. Then the guilt trip came rolling in at full speed. "Wow. Okay. I didn't think you'd be like this. I thought family was supposed to help each other." There it was. The classic "if you don't do exactly what I want, you're a terrible person" move. "Jason," I said, "family helps each other, but family also respects each other's limits. And my limit is not wanting to spend 3 days chasing your kids around while they turn my house into a jungle gym." "Well, I hope you never need a favor from me," he snapped before hanging up. Honestly, that stung a little, but mostly it was a relief. I know I could have said yes and suffered through it again, but at what cost? My sanity, my carpets, my already fragile relationship with my brother, which would have only grown more resentful. So, am I a bad person for saying no? Maybe Jason thinks so. But honestly, I think I'm just a person who finally set a boundary. And you know what? That feels pretty damn good. A few days passed, and I figured Jason would cool off. Maybe even realize I wasn't being unreasonable. But nope, he doubled down. I started getting passive-aggressive texts from him. "Jason, hope you're enjoying your peaceful child-free life while some of us actually have responsibilities. Jason, Mom says she's really disappointed in you, by the way. Jason, guess I'll just cancel my trip since I clearly have no support system. Oh, and my favorite. Jason, you wouldn't understand because you don't have kids." That one made me laugh. Like I hadn't spent an entire weekend last time practically running a boot camp for his little gremlins. Like I wasn't still finding rogue goldfish crackers in my couch cushions. I ignored him at first, but when my mom called me later that night, I knew he had officially escalated things. "Sweetie," she started in that tone. The one where she's trying to sound like she's not taking sides. But I already know where this is going. "I just don't understand why you won't help your brother. He really needs you." Of course, Jason had gone running to Mom. Classic move. "Mom," I sighed, already exhausted. "Do you know what happened the last time I watched them?" "Well, kids can be a handful," she said vaguely. "A handful?" I scoffed. "They destroyed my house, Mom. I'm still finding marker on my walls. And you know what Jason said when he picked them up? Kids will be kids. No apology, no offer to help clean, nothing. Just expected me to deal with it." Mom was quiet for a second. Then, instead of agreeing with me, she went with, Well, maybe if you talk to him about setting some rules. Mom, I cut in. I shouldn't have to parent his kids for him. That's his job. She sighed. I just don't want this to cause a rift between you two. Too late for that. Jason is the one making this a big deal, I pointed out. I said no, and instead of respecting that, he's acting like I'm some villain. If he had just said, okay, no problem, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Mom hummed in that non-committal way that meant she wasn't thrilled but also didn't have a solid argument against what I said. I just think you should try to make peace. Sure. Right after Jason learns how to respect my boundaries, I ended the call before she could guilt me any further, and I figured that was the end of it. But then, Jason's wife called me. Now let me tell you, Becca is the real MVP in all of this. She's the only reason Jason is semi-functional as an adult. So when she called, I actually picked up. I just heard about the whole thing, she said. Jason's being an ass. Oh, well, that was unexpected. Thanks, I said, caught off guard. I told him he was being ridiculous, she continued. You have every right to say no. Honestly, I don't even want him going on this trip, because I know he's going to come back acting like he single-handedly saved the company or something. I snorted. That did sound like Jason. Anyway, she said, I wanted to let you know that I'll handle the kids while he's gone. And I'll make sure they don't destroy anything. Wait, so, you're okay with this? I asked. Oh, absolutely, she said. Jason thinks he can just dump them on you without asking if I'm available first. I shut that down real quick. I swear I could have hugged her through the phone. Thank you, I said, genuinely relieved. I was starting to think I was crazy. Nope, just the only sane one in the family, she said. And with that, the crisis was officially not my problem. Jason never apologized. He just stayed mad for a few days, then randomly sent me a meme like nothing ever happened. Which honestly, classic Jason. But I don't regret saying no. Because if I had caved, it wouldn't have been the last time. He would have asked again. And again. And I would have been the free babysitter forever. Instead, I finally set a boundary. And even if Jason doesn't like it, I do. And that's good enough for me. A few weeks passed and things between Jason and me settled into this weird unspoken truce. He wasn't actively mad anymore, but he also wasn't exactly warm either. Our conversations were short and kind of awkward, mostly just him sending me dumb memes or random updates about his kids. He never actually said he was over it, but knowing Jason, this was his version of making peace. Which was fine by me. Honestly, I thought that was the end of it. That I had survived the great babysitting rebellion of 2024, and lived to tell the tale. And then last Saturday happened. I was at home enjoying my blissfully child-free weekend when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I figured it was a package or maybe one of my neighbors needing something. But when I opened the door, I almost choked. Standing there, looking entirely too smug for my liking, was Jason. And next to him, his 3 kids, backpacks on, wide-eyed and way too excited to see me. Surprise, Jason said, grinning like he had just delivered the best news of my life. I blinked. What's happening? Jason clapped a hand on my shoulder, way too casual. I figured it was time for you to get over this whole no babysitting thing, so I brought the kids over. Becca had to run some errands and I needed a break, so here we are. I stared at him, fully expecting him to burst out laughing and say he was joking. But no, he actually thought this was a solid plan. Jason, I said slowly, I did not agree to this. He waved a hand. Come on, they'll only be here for a few hours. You'll barely notice them. Barely notice them? The last time these kids were here, they turned my living room into an obstacle course and somehow broke a lamp by playing tag indoors. No, I said firmly. Take them home. Jason's grin faltered. Seriously? You're really gonna do this? Yeah, I said, crossing my arms. Because you don't get to decide when I babysit. I do. And I said no. His kids were watching, sensing the tension, but Jason still didn't budge. You're being ridiculous. I knew you weren't over it yet. Oh, I was over the situation. I just wasn't over him trying to walk all over me like a doormat. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Jason, I love my nieces and nephew, but you cannot keep trying to force me into this. I'm not your free babysitter. For a second it looked like he might actually argue. But then from behind him, a voice called out, Jason. We both turned to see Becca pulling up in their car, looking equal parts confused and pissed. "I told you I was taking them with me," she snapped as she climbed out. Jason groaned. "Oh my God, Becca, it's fine." "No, it's not fine," she shot back. "I told you if OP doesn't want to watch them, you don't get to push it. Get them in the car. Now." Jason looked like he wanted to argue, but even he knew better than to push Becca when she was in full mom mode. Begrudgingly, he turned to the kids and muttered, "Come on, guys." The little ones pouted but shuffled back toward the car, and I resisted the urge to let out the most dramatic sigh of relief. Becca, bless her soul, shot me an apologetic look. "I'm so sorry. He didn't tell me he was doing this." I shrugged, trying not to look as visibly done as I felt. "Not your fault." Jason huffed, clearly annoyed, but at least he was leaving. Before he got in the car, though, he turned back to me one last time. "You know," he said, "one day you're gonna need something from me. And I hope you remember this." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean like how you conveniently forgot all the times I already helped you?" His face twitched like he wanted to argue but couldn't. And with that he got in the car, grumbling the whole way. I watched them drive off, Becca clearly giving him an earful in the driver's seat, and for the first time in forever I felt free. I had finally put my foot down. And despite Jason's very obvious bruised ego, the world did not end. And honestly, that felt better than any fake peace ever could. A few more weeks passed and things were weird. Jason wasn't outright ignoring me, but he wasn't exactly being his usual self either. Instead of sending me dumb memes or texting random updates about his kids, he'd gone into full petty mode. Case in point, one day, I sent a message in our family group chat asking if anyone wanted to grab dinner that weekend. Jason's response? Jason: "Oh, I'd love to, but I have these things called responsibilities. You wouldn't understand." Mom responded with a grimacing face emoji. Becca just wrote, "Jason, stop." I rolled my eyes and ignored it. If Jason wanted to sulk like a child, that was his problem, not mine. But the real kicker came at Sunday dinner at Mom's house. I had barely walked in before Jason hit me with a loud, exaggerated, "Wow, look who actually decided to show up. Oh boy, here we go." I forced a smile and sat down at the table. Jason. Still mad, huh? Mel. He scoffed. "No, why would I be mad? I mean, it's not like my own sister refused to help me when I desperately needed her." Becca groaned. "Jason." No, I just think it's so interesting," Jason continued, ignoring her. "Because, I would always be there for my family." Mom, ever the peacekeeper, jumped in. "Jason, honey, let's not make this a thing." "Oh, it's not a thing," he said, shaking his head dramatically. "I just think it's funny." "You don't?" I cut in, finally losing patience. "You don't think it's funny, Jason? You're still mad because I told you no. Just admit it." Jason opened his mouth, probably to throw more sarcasm at me, but I wasn't done. "You know what's actually funny?" I said. "You keep acting like I abandoned you, like I've never done anything for you. But the one time I set a boundary, suddenly I'm the villain." He let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, a boundary? That's what we're calling it." "Yes, Jason," I said. "It's called a boundary. It means I don't have to rearrange my life every time you snap your fingers." Silence. For once, Jason didn't have a snarky comeback. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "You can be mad about it all you want. You can act petty, throw little jabs, make yourself the victim. But it doesn't change the fact that I don't owe you free childcare." Mom looked nervous, Becca looked thrilled, and Jason? He just sat there stewing. And then, out of nowhere, my sweet, innocent 6-year-old niece, who had been watching this whole thing unfold while munching on a dinner roll, piped up. "Daddy," she said, tilting her head, "why don't you just pay Auntie like a babysitter?" The entire room went dead silent. Jason turned to her, blinking like he had just been slapped with a truth bomb he wasn't prepared for. What?" My niece shrugged. "At school, when we need help, we say please and thank you, and we pay people if they're working. So why don't you just pay Auntie if you want her to work?" Becca choked on her drink, trying not to laugh. Mom looked like she was about to scold her, but even she couldn't hide her smile. Jason, meanwhile, looked offended. "It's not about money," he muttered. My niece took another bite of her roll. "Then maybe you should say sorry." "Oh, my God." This child just ended Jason's entire career in a single sentence. Becca fully burst out laughing, covering her face with her hands. Mom let out a surprised chuckle and quickly pretended to cough. I just sat there basking in the moment. Jason's face turned red, and he quickly grabbed his drink like it was the only thing keeping him together. Okay, we're done here. My niece just kept eating like she hadn't just dropped the best truth bomb of the year. That was the moment Jason finally, shut up about it. He didn't apologize because of course he didn't. But he also stopped making snide comments and guilt-tripping me every chance he got. And honestly, that was enough for me. Because at the end of the day, nothing I said could have made the point better than his own daughter calling him out at the dinner table. And that, my friends, is what we call karma. After that glorious moment at Sunday dinner, things actually started to get normal. Jason finally dropped the whole "you abandoned me" act, stopped making snide remarks, and actually talked to me like a human being again. It wasn't exactly an apology, but given how stubborn he is, the silence itself was probably the best I was going to get. And honestly, I was fine with that. A few weeks passed, and just when I thought we were out of the woods, Jason hit me with something unexpected. A text. Jason, hey, you free this weekend? At first, I assumed he was about to once again test my boundaries, so I responded with caution. Me why? Jason, just come over. We're doing a barbecue. Okay. That was new. I showed up on Saturday expecting some weird passive-aggressive energy, but instead, Jason was, shockingly, acting like a normal older brother. We ate, joked around, and for the first time in months, there was no tension hanging in the air. No jabs. No guilt trips. Just Jason, Becca, the kids, and me hanging out like we used to. And then out of nowhere, Jason cleared his throat and said, So, I've been meaning to say. Becca, mid-sip of her drink, immediately side-eyed him, like she knew exactly where this was going. Jason sighed and looked at me. Look, I know I was being a dick. I blinked. Excuse me? He rolled his eyes. Don't make me say it twice. Becca laughed. Oh, please, let's definitely make him say it twice. Jason groaned but kept going. I was being a dick. Okay. I don't know, I was stressed about work and the kids. And I guess I thought I could just expect you to help because you're my sister. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. He ran a hand through his hair. But Becca made me realize that's not how this works. And yeah, I get it now. You're not obligated to help just because we're related. And you're not a bad person for setting a boundary. Oh, I wasn't expecting him to actually say all of that. For a second, I just stared at him, trying to gauge if this was real life, or if I had somehow entered an alternate universe where Jason had developed self-awareness. Wow, I said. Becca must have really chewed you out, huh? Becca grinned. You have no idea. Jason groaned. Can you just take the damn apology? I smirked. Fine. I accept your apology. But, just to be super clear, this doesn't mean I'm suddenly signing up for free babysitting duty, right? Jason threw his hands up. No. No more surprise drop-offs, I swear. Becca snorted. Yeah, because if he ever tries that again, I'll be the one throwing him out of the house. We all laughed, and for the first time in forever, things felt genuinely good. And you know what? I actually do love my nieces and nephew. Just because I didn't want to be forced into babysitting them against my will didn't mean I didn't enjoy spending time with them on my terms. So later that evening, as I was getting ready to head home, I knelt down to their level and said, All right, listen up. If you guys promise not to destroy my house, maybe we can do a sleepover sometime. Their eyes lit up like I had just told them Christmas was coming early. Really? My niece squealed. Yep. But only if you behave. No marker on the walls, no flushing Legos, and definitely no spilling an entire gallon of chocolate milk on my carpet. The 8-year-old, looking way too guilty, whispered. That was an accident. I raised an eyebrow. Sure it was. Jason laughed. Wow. Now you make rules. I shot him a look. Damn right I do. And for the first time in a long time, Jason actually respected them. So in the end, did I become the full-time, unpaid babysitter Jason originally wanted? Nope. Did I completely cut him off and refuse to be involved in my niece and nephew's lives? Also nope. I just learned how to set boundaries. And the best part? He finally learned how to respect them. And honestly, that's a win in my book. A few months passed, and everything stayed surprisingly normal. Jason didn't try to guilt-trip me. No surprise kid drop-offs happened. And best of all, I got to hang out with my nieces and nephew on my own terms. I even followed through on the sleepover promise, with conditions. I had them over one Saturday night, but before they even stepped inside my house, I made them all stand on my front porch and repeat after me. I solemnly swear not to destroy Auntie's house. They giggled but played along. I solemnly swear not to destroy Auntie's house.
No flushing Legos.
No drawing on the walls. And no spilling a single drop of chocolate milk. The youngest hesitated. What if it's a tiny drop? I narrowed my eyes. Then I'm calling the cops. They gasped dramatically, and Jason, who was standing behind them with their overnight bags, just snorted. Becca, who had driven them over, patted my shoulder. Good luck. And honestly, it went fine. Sure, they still had their wild moments. I'm pretty sure my neighbors heard the epic battle they had over who got the last marshmallow in their hot chocolate. But they actually listened to my rules. And when they left the next morning, my house was still standing. Jason even texted me later. Jason, so, how bad was it? Me, shockingly tolerable. Who knew your kids were capable of following rules? Jason, I know, right? It's like they only act up when I'm around. Maybe I'm the problem. I stared at my phone for a long second before replying. Me. Did you just have a breakthrough? Jason. Delete this conversation immediately. I laughed out loud. So, in the end, Jason did learn something. Maybe not everything, but at least something. And me? I learned that saying no doesn't make me a bad person. That setting boundaries isn't mean, it's necessary. And if that means I get to enjoy my family without feeling like a doormat, then I'd say I won big time.